Would you like to be more connected and informed about your community? If so, it's time to find out who's doing what around town with Moot Point. Moot Point is a local podcast that covers the issues and topics that are relevant to all residents in Albion, Maine. Moot Point is a production of the Moo at moo202.org. And now, here's the host of Moot Point, Brad Taylor.
Well, hello there. I'm Brad Taylor, and I want to thank you for listening to my podcast, Moot Point. On today's episode, I have the honor of talking to a gentleman from Albion who is a published author. Specifically, he's a novelist, and you can find his first book at the Albion Public Library. Would you please welcome today's guest, Kyle Keenan. So, Kyle, I want to thank you for taking some time out to be with me here on another episode of Moot Point. And I'd like to have a chance to find out about this book that you've written. The title of it is Like Melvin. And I see that there is an alias on the cover. It's not your name, Kyle, on the cover.
Correct. Yes, I actually wrote Like Melvin under a pen name, Jonathan Vars,
Okay.
Which is the name that I use online with my website and social media accounts.
Good. We'll get to that in a little bit later, but first I want to find out something about this book. Tell me a little bit about the general plot line of the book.
Sure. So it basically centers around the main character, Jack Thompson, who is a college student who ends up getting the chance to star in a new medieval television series. So he goes out to California to film that. And once he's at the studio and they begin filming, he discovers some sort of conspiracy going on at the studio. So the main plot of the story is about Jack and the other characters he meets along the way coming to grips with that conspiracy and getting to the root of it.
Okay. So this is a story which is contemporary.
Correct. So it takes place in modern times. The medieval nature of the television series provides a little bit of a crossover, but it is definitely grounded in modern times.
Is there an element of the medieval times that leaks over into the contemporary story?
There is. Like Melvin explores the theme of escapism quite heavily in its various forms. Jack Thompson, the main character, uses acting as a way to escape some of the trauma of his past. And while he later comes to find the fallacy of this kind of escaping from problems rather than dealing with them, there are other characters who are really mired in that. And in that, the medieval nature of fiction and how we tend to think of knights and that whole sort of genre kind of has almost a very fantastic aura about it that can lend itself to kind of escaping into something that's not real. So because of that, the medieval theme does trip over into modern times in the way that people behave accordingly.
So, because I know in medieval times, they believed things that weren't true just because pretty much all knowledge was lost for a while.
Yes.
So how does that aspect of the medieval times where people were believing things that were not real, how does that mesh into the storyline beyond the TV show?
Sure. So the main antagonist, who I won't describe in too much detail as not to provide any spoilers, but his outlook on life ends up becoming sort of the antithesis of how the protagonist ends up seeing life, in that he sees it very much as something that is not quite real, not quite grounded in reality, something that can be created and controlled, rather than just experienced. So that kind of lack of knowledge or lack of grip on reality really comes into play, even to the point of the antagonist withholding truth and withholding, kind of an accurate reality from others to the point of causing danger.
So would you say that this is more of a action-adventure type story?
I would definitely call it a suspense story, in that the true nature of what's going on at the studio and what the antagonist's goals really are kept very much in the dark. And so because of that, certain actions that take place really create kind of a suspenseful atmosphere. So I would definitely describe it as a suspense story.
Okay. So in terms of plot twists, do things twist this way and that way in unexpected ways in the story?
They do, yes. I would say specifically towards the end, there are certain key revelations that really kind of twist things. I actually had a lot of fun toying with the idea of plot twist, not so much as a plot device, as it were, just to get a shock from the audience, but as revealing something about a character that could actually really suddenly connect the reader to the character more than they had before. There are certain key parts in the book where the motivations behind why a character might do or feel a certain way kind of provide a twist in a way that makes them more relatable to the audience.
So what do you think makes the main character likable?
I would say there are certain external qualities that he has that are just likable, in that he's hardworking. He really tries to engage with others and is friendly. But I would say actually the most relatable part of him are his struggles and his flaws. The largest of which being his desire to kind of escape from his problems instead of dealing with them, simply because of the trauma associated with them. He just doesn't want to think about them, wants to move on. And his inability to do that without until he comes face to face with his problems, I believe is something that is very, very relatable to a lot of people. So I would say, ironically, that it's his struggles and flaws more than even his redeeming qualities that make him likable.
Do you think that in the middle of his flaws, that he seems more like a real person?
I would say yes. I would say they are the qualities about him that make him the most human of any of the characters. Jack is probably the one who's most human.
Yeah, because I know with some characters they try to make certain kinds of characters so perfect they're not remotely human. They just seem to always know how to handle everything. So it sounds like you're saying this person doesn't always know how to handle the situations that he gets himself into. Absolutely.
It's kind of an interesting concept. I've heard it referred to as the Superman Fallacy, in that a lot of people like the character of Superman, but no one can really relate to him at all. And so for that reason, the character can only go so far. But with characters who are flawed, like Jack, it allows other characters to engage with him in a way that really provides kind of almost like a family atmosphere. There's a mentor character who's very prevalent in the story, and other key friends of his that really come into play to help redeem him in a way. they would be almost unnecessary if the character weren't already flawed and in need of help.
So does the story have a surprise ending?
I would say yes. I would say that it definitely does not. Throughout the story, it's very unclear exactly how the story will end, simply because the nature of what is going on is not explicitly clear. So for that reason, I would say yes.
And then that makes me curious. Did you end the story in such a way that you could do a sequel?
I did, yes. And I'm actually working on that very project right now. One of right towards the end, there's right when you would be expecting everything to wrap up, there is something that is suddenly revealed that that makes it impossible for that to be resolved within this book. And so that's the area that I explore in the second one.
Okay, very interesting. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back.
Do you moo? Currently, the only way to listen to Albion's local radio station, The Moo, is by using the TuneIn radio app. The TuneIn radio app can be downloaded for free from either the App Store or the Play Store on your phone or tablet. Once you have the app, search for The Moo. After it appears, click on the heart emblem to make The Moo one of your favorites. Then, each time you open the app, it will automatically start playing The Moo. Here's one other tip. If the station keeps cutting out, go into the TuneIn radio app settings and make the buffering time longer. By doing that, you'll have a smoother, more enjoyable experience. Remember, The Moo is the only radio station that talks exclusively about life in Albion. So if you'd like to feel more connected to our community, listen to The Moo using the TuneIn radio app.
So your electrical work is the inspiration for the last name.
Correct.
But what caused you to actually decide that you would live incognito in your written world?
Yeah, so prior to writing the book, I had put together a website, a writing website, voltampsreactive.com. And so in conjunction with that, I created social media accounts and whatnot. And I had always, as far as online presence goes, I had always desired privacy. In regards to that, I'm not one big into, exploring social media, so to speak. So when I was putting together my online presence, I went under a pseudonym, and that's when I settled on Jonathan Vars. So when I wrote the book, I kept the pen name for the same reasons.
Do you plan to continue your career under this pen name, or do you think that might change as time goes on?
That's a good question. I've it's one I've actually gone back and forth on. Because I still do enjoy the privacy of having the pen name, but I've also found that occasionally it can get confusing for some people that I know when I tell them about the book. So I'm actually not 100% certain as of right now, but I could see myself down the road possibly changing to my real name, but for now I'm gonna keep the pen name.
Oh, okay. So now you're an Albion resident. Have you been an Albion resident your whole life, or are you a newcomer?
I have been an Albion resident my whole life, and very, very happy to be. Really, really love Albion quite a lot. Love the people, and just love kind of the way of life of the whole town. It's a really close-knit community, and I've always loved this town.
Cool. Now you're going to be doing a special event, which is going to be coming up on Saturday, April 14th at 4 p.m, and that's going to be over at the library. Give me a description of what that event is supposed to be.
Sure. So that's going to be a general book discussion about Like Melvin. I'm going to start out talking a little bit about the book and my writing process in putting it together. I'm not going to go too much into detail about the plot, just for those who will be there who haven't read it. But I'm going to talk about some of the themes involved with it, and again, just my writing process in general. And then I'm going to open it up to anyone who has questions about the book or about writing in general.
Okay. Now, you talked earlier about getting involved and being helped by the West Bow Press in doing all sorts of technical things like getting listed on Amazon and things like that. Is your book available in a Kindle version?
It is, yes. And that's one thing that was very important to me, in that because I went through a publisher, pricing was not something I had any control over. So if anybody's like me, they tend to be pretty frugal when it comes to buying books, even if they're avid readers like myself. So while it is possible to get the softcover or the hardcover for a pretty reasonable price, getting it on Kindle you can get for $1.99.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so if you have or set up for it, it's very easy to get a hold of the book.
Very good. So you've got this event that's going on, and you're going. Somebody told me that you were going to college or taking classes. Is that true?
Yes, I actually finished college. I guess it was last May. I finished up and got my degree in electrical technology. So I actually do design work for an electrical company right now, and so that's where I'm at with that.
So you don't have to be a starving artist who lives in a shack somewhere trying to write books.
No, it might help. I've never tried it, but no, it's not a requirement.
So with the fact that you work a job, that would mean that you probably have to write in the evenings?
Yes, absolutely. I actually found, ironically, I feel like, being that writing is not something I do full time, I feel it does help my writing process, in that writing is something that is always an enjoyment. It's never something that I have to do. It's something that I look forward to doing, say at the end of the day. Actually, the fact that I wrote like Melvin in college was, I don't believe, an accident, because a lot of times I would be in between classes and kind of just wanted to vent creatively, and so I would work on the book. So that's something I will definitely talk about on Saturday as well. I think there are a lot of people who think they just don't have time to write, that they would like to, but they don't have time. But if it's something that you can just set aside, even as little as 10-15 minutes a day to work on a writing project, you'd be surprised what you can get done.
So 10-15 minutes. Now, I realize everybody's going to be different. For you, how much can you write in 10 or 15 minutes?
If I've fully drafted out a scene in my head, I could write almost continuously for the full 10 or 15 minutes. I tend to write longer than that. When I really sit down and do it, it's more like half an hour to an hour. But if I have a scene fully drafted out in my head, I can basically be typing for those full 10 to 15 minutes and actually get quite a bit done in that amount of time.
I've heard other authors describe that idea of drafting things out in their head. They can be busy doing chores around the house, just things that are other things that have to get done, but the whole time their mind is working through the details of
Absolutely.
what they're going to be writing next. You find yourself doing that?
Oh, for sure. I would say 90 to 95% of my writing comes that way. If I'm on kind of a long road trip, somewhere where there's a long drive, or I actually found some of my best writing came from mowing the lawn. Just going back and forth and bouncing around ideas in my head. But I would say that's absolutely true.
Do you find yourself verbally acting out, lines of dialogue, things that you think would be cool for a character to say?
I have before kind of sounded out something to hear how the words sound together, or every once in a while I try to avoid this, but every once in a while I will put something that I myself commonly say into a character's mouth, almost as an inside joke for those who know me more than anything else. But I will sometimes speak aloud something a character is saying, just to find out if the words do in fact sound right together.
Okay, so you're going to be at the library coming up on Saturday. So it's an opportunity for people to talk to you, find out a little bit about the book. I understand that the library has at least, what do they have? Well, like 1 or 2 copies on hand?
I know they have at least 1 copy, and so I'm really glad that they were able to get a hold of one. I'll probably be giving them more copies because I've heard that it seems to be pretty popular. It seems to get checked out a lot, which I'm very happy to hear. So I'll probably be providing them with more copies so that more people can read it.
So has anybody tracked you down and given you their opinion of what they think of the book?
Yes, there are several reviews online that I've been able to look through, and also the people that I know who have read it have been really good about giving me feedback and letting me know what they think. I would say that people have given me a lot of grace with it, because it's, I'm not a professional by any means, but people really seem to enjoy the story itself, and that's been the most satisfying part for me.
So I suspect you're going to want to write another book.
Yes, I actually, interestingly enough, I had intended for this book to be a standalone, but in crafting a scene towards the end, I had someone help me put it together, in that it was somewhat technical in nature, and in there helping me work through some of the plot holes that had come up. It ended up setting the book up very nicely for a sequel. So I'm actually in the thick of writing that now. I'm hoping to be done that within the next couple of months, and then be able to have that available, hopefully before too long.
Well, very good. And so I want to thank you for coming and talking to me and sharing about this.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
And maybe a few more people in Albion will check out your book and
hopefully
see what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot.
Well, thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Kyle Keenan. I would say that he is a true son of Albion. Now, don't forget, Kyle is going to be doing a special meet and greet at the Albion Library. That's coming up on Saturday, April 14th at 4 p.m. Now, if you can't make it, just remember that the name of his book is Like Melvin, and his pen name is Jonathan Vars. So until next time, I want to thank you for listening to Moot Point.
You've been listening to Moot Point. Please take a moment to like us on Facebook, and we'll let you know when we have our next community conversation with someone who's doing something interesting here in Albion. Moot Point is a production of the Moo, home of the Albion Community Calendar and the Moo Country Music Stream at moo202.org.